Hi, thank you for your interest in learning more about the River South Area-Wide Plan. The information you'll be hearing today will provide a brief recap of the planning process to date, an overview of our current planning recommendations, and a glimpse into next steps as we wrap up and conclude this planning study over the coming weeks. I'm Wendy Van Dyne, Project Manager and Landscape Architect at Stantec, and it's been a pleasure working with my colleagues over these past several weeks on the plans and proposals that you'll see within this presentation. The River South Area-Wide Plan is being funded through an EPA Brownfield grant, which Stantec assisted the city in securing in 2018. The area-wide planning process is organized into 4 distinct phases. The first phase was focused on learning the place, that is, visiting with neighborhood property owners, local stakeholders, and residents to understand the context of this area. The second phase was focused on exploring the possibilities and sharing initial thoughts on potential redevelopment options. We're currently at the third phase of the planning study, which is focused on sharing a refined approach for the neighborhood framework plan and initial thoughts for the design of public spaces such as parks and pedestrian ways. Like previous phases, our intent was to present this information through a series of public meetings. However, given current circumstances, we're presenting this information instead online and look forward to hearing your feedback. As we complete the plan in the coming weeks, we'll be taking this feedback and finalizing the study document for final presentation to the city. This plan for the River South neighborhood is one piece of a larger downtown plan update that Topeka city planners are currently working on. The concept for the downtown plan is focused on knitting together the downtown neighborhoods and subdistricts through primary pedestrian corridors like Kansas Avenue and Van Buren, and a series of activity hubs that are located within an easy 5-minute walk of one another. There are key issues and opportunities that impact future development patterns in River South. This neighborhood is uniquely situated between the south bank of the Kansas River and the Polk Quincy Viaduct. While the river provides opportunities for redevelopment, the Polk Quincy Viaduct is currently a barrier that appears to cut off the neighborhood from the activity of downtown Topeka. Kansas Avenue and Topeka Boulevard both currently serve as the primary conduits for activity in and through River South, specifically from downtown Topeka into the Noto Arts District. However, Van Buren is also an important pedestrian connection point from this neighborhood to the state capitol. While River South is physically separated from the Great Overland Station and on the north bank of the river, visual continuity and complementary uses should be considered and encouraged. Based on these considerations, as well as from feedback we heard from local stakeholders during the first 2 phases of the planning process, we've assembled a preferred neighborhood framework plan that builds on the following principles. The first of these principles is to continue momentum in the downtown core. While previous planning studies for River South focused on entertainment, hotel, and convention space for development, our current preferred approach will continue to support these types of development and momentum within the downtown core rather than River South. Secondly, working with the existing framework of existing corridors, this plan will continue to reinforce Kansas Avenue as downtown Topeka's signature, walkable main street, with key hubs of activity to encourage exploration between downtown subdistricts. Finally, this plan will reinforce Noto as Topeka's premier arts and culture district. While River South is complementary to Noto, they each have distinct personalities that should easily complement one another. In fact, River South's location, situated between the convergence of downtown Topeka's activity and Noto's creative district, provides the opportunity to guide future redevelopment of this neighborhood into a unique innovation district. Our recommendation for this plan is to develop the River South Overlay District to be focused on cultivating a neighborhood in which new construction is complementary to the current business and industry of the area, maintains the character of key historic structures, and honors the rich cultural legacy of this place. This approach in developing an innovation district will provide a technology and innovation hub that is attracted to new industries and is tailored to the workforce needs of tech and innovation fields across the country. To initiate this momentum, the preferred framework plan focuses on several key catalyst sites that are attractive for redevelopment. These sites are primarily owned by the City of Topeka or other public agencies who have indicated some interest in redevelopment. Based on previous conversations with neighborhood property owners and local stakeholders, the preferred framework plan focuses on redeveloping these catalyst sites with new construction, mixed-use office, residential, and commercial buildings, while maintaining the existing function and use of businesses within the central portions of the neighborhood. Open parcels within these central portions could also be considered for smaller infill redevelopment if property owners are interested. This plan view rendering illustrates how new construction is concentrated on parcels around the perimeter of the neighborhood, while existing businesses remain in central areas. New mixed-use construction is illustrated in blue, with existing structures shown in gray and key iconic buildings highlighted in orange. Additionally, thought has been given to how public parks and green spaces can support this neighborhood framework. This concept includes two noteworthy areas that can serve this purpose. The first is the Polk Quincy Viaduct Park, and the second is the South Riverfront Park. Each has been assigned a unique design recommendation that complement the community and reinforce pedestrian movement. You may be wondering, what exactly is an innovation district, and what would that look like in River South? Essentially, an innovation district is developed with a heavy emphasis on office and laboratory space, but also honors the character and presence of existing industries. While office space generally comprises much of this development, it also includes other mixed uses such as new housing, restaurants, coffee shops, breweries, and small amounts of retail to support the live, work, play lifestyle that tech and innovation workers crave. New construction complements the existing character of buildings and honors the authenticity of the neighborhood. Across the country, cities like Topeka are taking an active role in developing innovation districts of their own, which helps to diversify the local economy. In 2014, the Brookings Institution published a report on the rise of innovation districts, which outlines the various ingredients of how a successful district is formed. These ingredients include economic assets, physical assets, and networking assets. For the purpose of this planning study, physical assets have been identified and explored in greater detail. According to the Brookings Institute research, there are three types of physical assets. Physical assets in the public realm, which are assets or spaces available to the public such as parks, plazas, and streets that become hotspots of energy and activity. Physical assets in the private realm, which are privately owned buildings and spaces that stimulate innovation in new and creative ways. And physical assets that knit the district together. These are specific investments aimed to eliminate barriers that hinder relationship building and connectivity. Examples of physical assets in the public realm could be pedestrian improvements to streets, such as Crane, First Avenue, Topeka Boulevard, Van Buren, and Kansas Avenue. They could also include public parks, such as the Polk Quincy Viaduct Park. This rendering helps illustrate what these public realm of physical assets might entail if you were looking northwest over the Polk Quincy Viaduct. As you can see, pedestrian improvements to existing streets are critical to encouraging activity and vibrancy within the neighborhood. Rather than hindering pedestrian flow, green spaces below the viaduct help encourage greater connectivity into downtown. Physical assets in the private realm are categorized as privately owned buildings and spaces that stimulate innovation in new and creative ways. Examples of these might include new construction of mixed-use spaces that have coffee shops and breweries on the lower level, office space on the middle levels, and residences on the upper stories. Another example for consideration might be the River South Park. This open space could be owned and maintained by the companies and developers who construct adjacent buildings, but could be spaces that are open and available for community use. Some similar examples of this arrangement can be found in cities across the United States, such as the Shipyard in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the Wake Forest Innovation Quarter in North Carolina, both of which have open green spaces available to the public. As you'll see in this example illustration, the south bank of the Kansas River offers a prime opportunity for this, while also diversifying the local economy, activating the riverfront, and connecting the neighborhood to a walkable and vibrant downtown core. To support walkability, it's also important to consider the physical assets that knit the district together. Examples of these types of assets in River South are very similar to physical assets in the public realm, with key emphasis on the streetscapes and pedestrian improvements on roadways for pedestrian safety. Examples of these types of improvements could be protected bike lanes on Van Buren that promote connectivity to the Capitol building. They could also be continued streetscaping and pedestrian improvements on Kansas Avenue that promote connection south to the downtown core. And they could also include pedestrian improvements on roadways that connect the north and south sides of the river. The recently completed Topeka Bikeway Plan identified a specific approach to encouraging this activity through the evaluation of a priority bikeway and pedestrian corridor at the Kansas Avenue Bridge and First Street. The Bikeway Plan identified improvements to the Kansas Avenue Bridge, which would add additional protected bicycle lanes to encourage greater use, exploration, and vibrancy of all the downtown neighborhoods situated along the Kansas Avenue spine. Just as the Preferred Neighborhood Framework Plan offers guidance to where and how green spaces should be defined, we've also considered how these open spaces could be designed. Before we dive into these details, it's important to recognize the surrounding context. While the south side and north sides of the river are physically independent of one another, the visual connection should be reinforced whenever possible. The green space beneath the Polk Quincy Viaduct works in a similar manner. It is visually connected to the green spaces to the north, but it should be designed in a distinct way. Between these three parks, downtown Topeka will have a series of unique pedestrian hubs that encourage activity in many areas of the downtown plan. Next, we'll take a closer look at how these spaces could be designed. The space beneath the Polk Quincy Viaduct could support pedestrian use and walkability to surrounding areas. First Street and Second Street should be designed in a way to support safe pedestrian crossings and minimize high-speed, high-volume traffic to support a walkable, pedestrian-friendly environment. Similarly, many communities across North America, and even the world, have reclaimed spaces nearly identical to this one. Some examples include the development of skate parks, ice skating ribbons, and farmers markets, while others offer less intense programming such as pedestrian trails, art installations, and aesthetic improvements. The next open space in the River South neighborhood is the South Riverfront Park. Most notably, this space will be anchored on the east and west ends by new mixed-use office buildings, which will provide views over the existing levee. While users within the park will have framed views to the south of the Capitol building along the Van Buren corridor, this space will also have trail connections and flood walls that help open the space out into the river and extend views north. The lawn spaces of this park could be developed by building owners to support community events, such as these examples from throughout the region. Most notably, Surly Brewing Company in Minneapolis has developed a collaborative community green space adjacent to their facilities in a light industrial neighborhood. They regularly program community events such as concerts, movies, and food truck festivals, which engage their employees and contribute to a vibrant community atmosphere. By reconstructing portions of the existing levee, flood walls provide an opportunity to terrace the south bank of the Kansas River to make views more accessible to the activities that occur within the open green space, much like this example from Vancouver, British Columbia. To further extend these views, pedestrian bridges may also physically extend the connection out into the river and provide access and views to adjacent trails. These extensions can also link to viewsheds that includes artwork honoring the cultural and historic legacy of the site. An example of this can be seen in Wichita's Keeper of the Plains sculpture, located in the Arkansas River. Throughout these open spaces, artwork will be an important element, from building murals to sculpture to lighting displays, which will help communicate the significance of this neighborhood as it was to previous generations of Topekans. While this study doesn't specifically include designs for the Great Overland Station and North Riverfront Park, it does recognize how visual connections from each of these spaces can support and complement one another. As development patterns evolve, it will be crucial to consider all opportunities to engage and support an inclusive, diverse, and vibrant neighborhood for all members of the community. Again, this presentation reflects the completion of the study through the third phase of the planning process. Since we can't meet in person to hear thoughts and feedback, we've compiled the information into another useful tool for stakeholder input. On this website, we've included a link to a story map that outlines the recommendations we've shared and offers an opportunity for you to explore this content at your own pace. At the bottom of the story map, we have included a series of 3 short questions to collect your thoughts. We've also included an interactive map in which you can explore specific recommendations more closely and leave comments and feedbacks for the planning team. We encourage you to visit the story map and share your thoughts with us. This information will continue to be provided to the community for the next few weeks. At the end of May, we will be compiling all the feedback received and will be assembling our final recommendations for presentation to the city and to the public. Again, we thank you for your interest in this project and in learning more about the River South Area-Wide Plan. We're excited to share our progress with you and look forward to the feedback you have to provide. Thank you and have a great day.